So in today's training, it really is about FPDS. I get asked all the time, how do I use FPDS? What is FPDS? I'm going to go into that. Briefly, I'll be talking about what it is, but mostly I want to show you. One of the things that I equate FPDS to is email and Excel and all PowerPoint. When you start a business, you have to learn all these tools, even if you're in construction, right? Even if you're in manufacturing and selling parts, you somehow need to put together a flyer. And so you get good at these basic IT tools, et cetera. They're just the tools of the trade. And in government contracting, when you become a government contractor, or if you are a government contractor, there are several tools you must learn. FPDS is one of them, right? This is how you can learn about awarded contracts, et cetera. And if you're brand new, or if you feel like maybe you don't know a lot about FPDS, that's okay. I work with companies that are $40 and $50 million a year. And literally people who are responsible for some sales in one way or another don't even know about FPDS. They barely maybe can say the acronym, but they don't go in, they don't use it. And it's this massive amount of data. FPDS is data. And the goal is to turn that data into information, and then in turn, turn the information into insight. In today's training session, I'm going to talk to you about how to use FPDS in government contracting. And I really want to cover down on three things before I just dive in for the bulk of the 30 minutes inside of the tool. So the first thing is just a reminder of what FPDS is. The second is how to search, how I search, but how you can search using FPDS to find those opportunities that I talk about, or in that case, it's called contracts, right? And then the third thing I'm going to cover with is how do I look at the FPDS results? When I see something come back and I go, well, let me explore that, I'm going to walk you through how I look at it. I'm literally doing this right now with one of my customers. We're going to build a $300 million pipeline, and part of their pipeline is going to have expiring contracts, which we'll talk about in a minute, but part of it is in there. So I'm able to look at FPDS. I'm going to show you how I'm looking at FPDS to help my customer. So everything I'm going to show you today is exactly how I use FPDS. My name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. That's what I want for you to have in your contracting, your government contracting firm, right? Is repeatable, predictable results. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the GovCon Chamber Government Contracting Success newsletter. In this newsletter is where I put a ton of information, extra information that I share out there, whether it's strategic plans or other training that the government provides, or training that I provide. So I put a lot of valuable information in there for you to be able to find it. If you haven't seen recent newsletters, if you're a woman-owned small business, we put a lot of focus area around one particular issue that was how to succeed as a woman-owned small business. Did a similar one on 8As. So there's a lot of good information in that newsletter. Make sure you subscribe to it. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to say is I'm talking about FPDS from a sales guy's perspective, right? I'm a previous small business owner. I do this every single day, but I'm not trying to come at you from a here's the academic way or the government's far way of explaining FPDS or something else. I'm trying to explain it to you as we salespeople use it. And any of us who are small businesses trying to succeed, we're fundamentally salespeople, right? And so the first thing to keep in mind, FPDS stands for Federal Procurement Data System. And what that really means is the procurements or contracts that they've made, if they're over $10,000, if they're valued at over $10,000, then they're going to be in there for the most part, right? There's few exceptions on where things are not in there. But so that's the threshold, anything over 10,000. So this is awesome when you're looking for $1 million, $5 million, $10 million contracts to be pursuing. You can find them in here to see the ones that were awarded, to see maybe when they're coming down the pike. And I'll talk about that in a minute. The second thing to keep in mind is, so pretty much everything is in there except no classified related information. So contracting officers, agencies, they don't have to put information into FPDS. If there's any level of compromise to the classification of the, like top secret, et cetera, classified information, and sometimes just contracts about an agency are classified information themselves. And so they don't put it in. Typically, you won't find, CIA, NSA type folks in here, but pretty much everybody else you'll find in here. And then usually there's no procurement card purchases. And so if you're not familiar with this, a procurement card is basically the government's credit card. And there's tens and hundreds of thousands of those out there, and people buy on those every day. But generally, those purchases on a procurement card are below a certain threshold. So if it's under 10,000, it's not going to be out there. Sometimes people can get fancy with their procurement cards, and if they do, then it needs to be reported to FPDS. But for the most part, those credit card purchases are not in here. If you're familiar with a term called simplified acquisition, which is basically anything under $250,000, those are in here. So somewhere between, I can't remember what the bottom is, but like 25,000 to 250,000. This thing's interesting. By the way, the contract value over 10,000, that might have switched to 25,000. I'm not sure, but that data comes from FPDS itself, and even that might be a little outdated. I'll show you where I get that information. Okay, so let's talk about how to search FPDS. Okay, when you go into FPDS to search, inside of FPDS, there's 3 ways, and I'm going to show you in 2 seconds here. But you can search with keywords, so just type in SharePoint or painting, whatever. Next way is you can get a lot of data and you can begin to filter down those results. And so I'll show you that way of searching. And then the third way, which is the way you want to graduate to eventually, is advanced search. And basically you're putting in specifically what you're looking for. And I'll show it to you rather than try to tell it to you now. But these are the levels of maturity of searching in FPDS. First, you just try a keyword, and a NAICS code could be a keyword like 541, 511. If you put those 6 numbers into a keyword, it's kind of the same thing. It'll look for it. The second way is filtering. The third way is advanced. So we'll get to that. The other thing I'm going to show you in FPDS is how I look at it. So when you're searching, you're getting a ton of results. But when you look at one opportunity, I look at that opportunity in basically 3 chunks. I look at the buyer and I try to understand who the buyer is. And a bit of information about them. I'm looking at the opportunity to try to understand what is the government buying with this opportunity. And then the third thing I look at is the vendor, right? Who won this contract? And this, when you think about it, if I'm looking at the winning vendor, I can be doing competitive analysis. I'm trying to find the competitors who are winning what I want so I can go in and take it away from them or win it away from them, right? I also consider and go, you know what? They're winning. Maybe I should just go in and try to get on their team, right? They've won what I want to sell, but I'm still maybe newer or I'm open to subcontracting. I can go in and follow up with them. And the same thing with the buyer, right? If I look at an opportunity and I find it based on SharePoint, say that's my keyword or something, and I can find who are the buyers out there. And so I'll show you more about that as we go forward. FPDS.gov lands on this page. This page for the most part is not where I go. I just move on in. And the way I move on in is I don't even do anything fancy. I hit right here and I hit enter. But this idea of this is where you can do that first keyword search. So let's say SharePoint. And I'm not going to zoom in. I'll just tell you what I typed for a second. But when I typed SharePoint in there, all things aside, I got 7,000 opportunities that came back right here. And that's good stuff, right? And so I'm going to go through and show you a couple other searches. But before I do, I wanted to come back and tell you, for you, make sure, and I don't care how experienced you are, make sure you come into FPDS, click on their help button, and look at some of the links that are around here, because you'll start finding things like the Easy Search FAQ. This thing is really good because when I do advanced searches, which I'll talk about in a minute, I go down. Let me see if I jump down really quick. Just bear with me. So let's say I'm looking right here. It says socioeconomic indicators. If I'm trying to search for opportunities that have been awarded to HubZone or a woman-owned, then I can see how they put it. You see right here, it says woman-owned small business. What this tells me is that inside of this tool, when I'm trying to search, I should not try to say socioeconomic indicator equals WOSB, which I would think they would have there. Instead, I need to type out women, right? And keep it in mind, it's in plural, not singular, right? Those kind of things matter. Well, every single field in DSBS that you might want to do an advanced search on is right in here. And this is just a link off that homepage I showed you. So this is Easy Search FAQs. How do I search FPDS? When you begin to master this, you begin to realize FPDS is not a secret. It's just a process. It's just a set of information. You need to understand it. When you understand it, you are you're in control of that tool. Here's another one where you can come in, and this is FPDS frequently asked questions. I'm not going to go through it, but go through it and learn it, right? By the way, this is where I sat there and said, just confirming it's 10,000, right? And then some other stuff. This one was really cool. I'm not going to go into it a lot, but here's an interagency contract directory. This, just me preparing the training for you, introduced me to this, which I wasn't even truly paying attention to. But once I did, remember that customer I said I'm trying to build the $300 million pipeline for? Well, I was able to sit there and go back and find all these contract vehicles that I was trying to find, like hundreds of them at one agency or Department of Commerce, for example. And I was able to go through it. I did that by looking and learning about this interagency tool and then going back to the search criteria and putting them together. So yes, it takes time to learn a tool, but you'll be fine. The last one I want to show you is here's 171 pages of pure bliss, right? The government's user manual for FPDS. You don't need to read every page, but go through there, learn about the tool, because if you can master the tool, you can master the data. If you are gathering the data, you'll turn it into information and then into insight. Insight is where you look and create a strategy around an agency you want to go after and the opportunities you want to win. But it starts with the data. And here is a tool or a guide on how to use that data, how to understand what the government is doing, what the buyer is doing when they're putting it in. Okay, so let's come back to FPDS because I'm going to be moving pretty fast. So the first thing I said is you can search with keywords, right? Another keyword I'm looking for is I'm looking for deaf communication access for one of my customers. So if I type it in, you can see right away there's not a lot here. And it's interesting too. It's really old. That's 2019. So without going too far, if you look at the right-hand side of the screen, you can see it's got a sort by section. Again, take a minute to learn the tool. I'm going to sort it descending, meaning I want to see something that was signed most recently. And so now I can see that here's negative 17,000. I'm really looking for anything that has something recently. So here's January. Let's take this one, right? It's 46,000. And I'm going to click in it and see what we got. So remember, there's a couple of things I'm looking for when I look at opportunities. And I'll come back a little bit more in a second, but I'm looking to learn about the opportunity, about the buyer, and about the seller, basically. So the first thing I want to do is learn about the opportunity, and I'm going to scroll down, and I know I'm moving pretty fast, but you can watch a replay, but I'm going to scroll down because this is the section I want, products or services information. And in here, this is what I'm really looking for, right, is a quick description. Provide American Sign Language and Communication Access Real-Time Translation Service. Couple of things about that. First off, that tells me that's exactly what I was looking for, so I found the right opportunity. Second thing it tells me is that I wasn't using all of the right words. Maybe I should use American Sign Language, which my customer would have said, why didn't you use that in the first place, Neil? But I'm just showing you like this switch, right? And then I'm able to begin to see some other things like the NAICS code makes sense. It's under 541930, but you begin to look at these things. Let me zoom back out for a second, and I want to show you this done just again. Now I'm going to sit there and say American Sign Language. So I'm still just doing the keyword search at the moment. And now when I come in, there's 1,565 opportunities compared to, I think there was like 42. So you see right there was 42 for deaf communication access. So all I did was type in one keyword, learned that I should be using maybe a different keyword like American Sign Language. And then I'm going to come over here and do the same thing, descending sort order. And I'm going to say here, I want to sort it by date signed. I don't really want the small ones. I'm looking for a size that's a little bit bigger. So I'm going to come down for 1 second. Let's just call this 50,000 one a big one for the moment because there's not a lot. But here, I'm going to choose this one. It was January 2024, so it was just a few days ago. I'm going to click on it, and now I'm into this opportunity. So let me take a minute here and show you how I look at opportunities completely. This is an opportunity. This single view that we're looking at is an opportunity. It has a wealth of information that I want to show you. So the first thing I do is I'm going down, before I look at anything else, I'm confirming that this looks like what I want it to be. So I'm looking at the products or services and I'm saying to myself, perfect, it's American Sign Language. That's what I'm looking for. The next thing I see is that this is option year 2. That's what the OY2 means. They're exercising option year 2. So that tells me they're spending about $500,000 a year. And actually, if I scroll up now really quick, and I'm just going to zoom up and down for a minute. if I come back up, where was I going? Here. So if I come back up, okay, so it looks like it's a $237,000 5-year contract at $50,000 a year, which is fine. And especially in American Sign Language contracts, that's a decent size. And so I'm looking at that. The other thing I can begin to see, right? I'm still looking at the opportunity. There's the customer, there's the buyer, the seller, and the opportunity. Right now, I'm still looking at opportunity data. So I can see here that if I wanted to learn more about this opportunity, I could go to the main procurement identity. So I can grab that guy, go search it, and I can learn more. But what I'm seeing here is that this contract's going to go until 27. That means it's probably going to, well, it's interesting it's saying the completion date's 25, but I think that's because of this guy. But I can go verify it. But if the ultimate completion date is 2027, I can begin to say, okay, do I want to put that into my pipeline, et cetera? And then one other thing I was going to say is, where was the, so I was looking for, coming down here, they completed it under simplified acquisition. So this is an interesting thing to see, right? It was an SDVO set aside. I'm seeing about the opportunity. How was it competed? Right here, type of set aside. I'm able to see it was an SDVO SB. So this is the Department of Veterans Affairs, but probably not going to be able to get in there. But simplified acquisition means that generally there's not a lot of competition. Ironically, it looks like there was 6 for this. So even for a small contract, it looks like there's competition. So I'm able to look in there and look at this opportunity and go, this is the type of opportunity I want. Now, because my customer is not SDVO, I wouldn't want to be in the VA, but I can keep looking. So the next thing I want to look at, I like the opportunity. Everything about the opportunity is exactly aligned to my slam dunk opportunity. So now I want to find out about the buyer. If I come up to the top, first thing you're going to see is here I got lucky. I got 2 different people. Generally, when you look at their emails, this 259 won't be their real email, but it's a great start. But these 2 names tell me who 2 contracting personnel are out there. If I go look at them, I will find out generally that they're a contract officer or contract specialist. Either one is perfect because they're aligned to this opportunity. So that's really good. Right out of the gate, up in the top right-hand corner of an opportunity, I get to learn about who the buyer's representatives are. The next thing I get to see as I come down a little bit is I can see more about the purchaser information, right? So over here, I can see it was done for the Department of Veterans Affairs. If I'm looking for somewhere else, so here's VACO Community Care. That's a funding office, which is cool because I can begin, when I have a pipeline, I always say you need to find the department, you need to find the program office, and you need to find the contracting office, because the program office is the one with the need and the money. The contracting office is the one doing the work. And so it looks like VACO Community Care is the one doing that funding. And so when I'm trying to understand who's buying what I sell, in this case, American Sign Language, I'm able to come into the purchase information and learn that. And then if you don't know this, everybody's got an ID. So you can skip the name stuff and just use the ID. So an example is if I wanted to look at the funding office ID, I could grab that. I'm going to go show it in 1 second. I'll use that guy to show it. But the last thing I want to show you is now I'm looking at the seller's information. I looked at the opportunity. I looked at the buyer's information. Now I'm looking at the seller. And here's the seller right here. I can see that their name is Van Crow, or however you pronounce that, right? Here's their UEI. I can take that over to DSBS and USA Spending and really see how much money they're making, how big a company they are, et cetera. And in DSBS, I can find the owner's name and their email and their phone number. So generally, it's them. And I can reach out to them and say, hey, I'd love to work together. So then as I'm coming down, I can see that they're a service disabled owned business. The interesting thing, the really interesting thing is this was simplified acquisition, but everything that says right here shows me this company is not an SDVO. So it is really interesting. And just let me go check that. So if I go into DSBS, I can come down into DSBS. I'm searching it really fast. There's Van Crow, Christopher Crosby. If I come down, so they're SDVO right there for sure. And they're not expired and they're not big. So sometimes the data in FPDS is not updated correctly. This most part, this should be pulled from SAM. There is sometimes when the person who enters this information does it, but these guys should be showing up as multiple times as a small business. I don't know why they're not. If they ever happen to watch this video, they can do it. But so now I've just looked at the buyer's information, seller's information, et cetera. And that's a way to really identify it. So now I want to show you the next way. I was talking about searching, and I was talking about how I'm looking at an opportunity, and I'm just tracking my time. The next thing I want to show you is this filtering down before I do advanced search. I'm still on American Sign Language. I'm still looking at 1,565 opportunities right there. But over on the left-hand side, I have this ability to filter down. That's what I mean, just selecting something and filtering down. So I told you I'm trying to support Department of Commerce. That's where I really want to build that $300 million pipeline. And one of the things my customer sells is depth communication access. So we'll click on this. And so when I do, now I've got 54 opportunities, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do descending over here. And when I say date signed descending, I'm just trying to figure out where they have information. The first thing I can see right away is I see BPA call. I'm like, I wonder if there's a BPA for American Sign Language. This one's pretty hilarious. These guys are called American Sign Language. That kind of puts them at the top, doesn't it? And so I'm looking at negative numbers. I'm coming down to try to find me a positive number. I mean, a positive number of anything decent. These are all small things. Yeah, these are all tiny, which is unfortunate. But so if I come into this guy here, oh, that was 2016. Oh, this is interesting. So let me back up. This is something else I just saw from the data, and I want you to track. Is I was looking in here for American Sign Language in the Department of Commerce, and it seems like there might be a lot. But as I started coming down, you notice there was the last time they awarded anything with those keywords was in 2021. And before that, it was 2019. And then it just goes earlier than that, right? So it's so far away. That tells me they're not awarding contracts in the Department of Commerce using this. So what are they using, right? That's the interesting thing for me. If I come back in here really quick, I'm going to use these guys as NAICS code. I'm going to try to search on this NAICS code. And so now I'm going to show you the third way of searching. I showed you how to do keyword search, just putting something in, and filtering over on the left-hand side. By the way, you can see like there's vendors over there as well, and I'll show you more about that in a second. But now I want to show you advanced search. If I come into advanced search, I'm going to say new results or new search. So this is a brand new search. And here, all I want to say is NAICS code. And remember, I showed you that user guide that you can look at, but I'm going to type in NAICS code. And over here it says like, but I'm going to give it to them exact. This is the one I want, and I'm going to search. Let's see what we get. So here with this one, now I have 289,000. Now that I'm not searching the keyword, there's a lot more in here. And so I want to begin to filter this down. Let's do one more advanced search, and I'm just going to modify the current one. But basically, I'm looking for date signed. So date signed, I'm going to say, show me from 2022, let's say. 2022, I'll just pick any old day to today. So now I'm saying, show me anything in there. And there's been 29,000, which is great. So in this case, I'm not going to bother with searching date signed. This one, I like to sit there and do action and obligation. It's there in the middle. But basically, I said, show me how much. So remember, I was seeing 5,000 and 10,000. Now I'm looking at 25 million, 45 million. I don't know what these are, but I can begin to go into it. So let me just choose this guy really quick. This one is a $40 million contract, right? And if I scroll down, I want to find out really quick what's the type of work. But here it's international language service. And so American Sign Language is woven in there. And it just means I have to look at this a little bit more. But let's tighten this down with those filters. If I look at the filters, I was looking for Department of Commerce. And it's interesting. I cannot see any in commerce, which is unfortunate. I was just looking at these things really quick. You can filter down, but I can also see who's winning and what they're winning on. So here, Deaf Access Solution, in the last 2 years, 3 years, they've won 157 contracts. This is competitive analysis. I can look and see where these guys weren't winning. And if I sort it again, I can see, well, at CMS, they're picking up good sized contracts. This is something worth me going into and looking at. If I want to get $1 million contract, this is a $6 million contract, right? And so I can come down really quick and I can look right here, furnish sign language interpreting services in relation to the blah, 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 right? And CART is another thing we search on. Oral transliteration, which is an interesting thing. So these give me so much insight onto the opportunity, makes me realize it's the right place. As I come up, I can look here and I can see it looks like these guys are not small. You see how it doesn't say that they're small at all? And really quick, just go to the bottom. It was a full and open competition. There's only 3 companies, and my customers certainly could have competed on this. And so this allows me to come back and look at it. Now I can chase down these offices that are doing the work, and there's no email up here, but these names, BAER or Hosley, that's those people, I can find them on the internet. Just taking L Hosley and putting it out on the internet, I can find them. So anyways, a lot of traction in here. Really remember to look at these tools. This is how I get good at what I get good at. Not that I'm great at tools or something. I read the manuals and the manuals tell me how to do it and I go through. My one thing for you to remember coming out of today's training is just take the time, 30 minutes every day, to get good at this tool. If you want to win government contracts, especially if you've got traction and you want to win more, then learn the tools of the government's trade and get really good at that. Just remember, as you're doing that and as you're doing anything else within government contracting, that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.